Okay, I guess I'm streaming. I I didn't intentionally mean to just start streaming, but since I did it, I'm here. All right, so this particular last live stream, I was so upset. So I just deleted the whole thing. Just for those who may know, the subscription rate here on the channel after 16 years, we're almost at 10,000. It got at 10,000 and it started going backwards. And that was just weird. And so right now it's at three shy of 10,000, but before it's acknowledged, it has to be at least about 10 or 20 subscriptions above that. So it's only taken 16 years to do this, folks, believe it or not. Yeah, it's at this point it doesn't really matter, you know. Certainly, well, for a long time it hasn't really mattered. I was hoping that we could got it done last week, but you know, what are you gonna do? So I'm gonna spend most of my time, and as far as any things that I'm gonna be doing, it's gonna be in Patreon. As I'd mentioned, I left a message and posted that as well as I posted it on my description as far as what's going on with this channel. And I thought it would be best to change it now. I'm not going to have time to respond to people's questions when they comment on this channel. After 16 years, I just don't have the time to do this anymore. I have to go in a different direction with that. So everything that needs to be directed towards me, apologies, but I'm just not going to answer your comments. You can contact me. I'm provided all the information. You can contact me directly. If you are interested in being part of Patreon, go on there, become a member. You can contact me through that as well. I'm going to be creating series, and so I'm available for sessions. So all this other stuff that I'm doing right now, this is what I'm going to be doing, and I don't have time for anything else. And it's my hopes that I can actually get out there and start being amongst the public and touring musically and communicating and teaching out there in the world instead of through this portal. You know, I've been in this portal for 16 years. It's time to move on, you know. So I'm going to do what I'm going to do, what I have been doing, and even better than what I did before. But I'm just going to go ahead and move forward. I'm not getting any younger, so that's what's going on here. So hopefully that's clear to everybody. I mean, I've noticed my subscription rate dropping, continuing to drop here. And here's the thing, folks. It's kind of difficult to do this stuff online. It's because the ability to communicate through this, you know, way of speaking to one another is lacking a great deal. There's a lot that gets missed. There's a lot that gets misinterpreted. And a lot of people get upset and run away for things that probably have nothing to do with what they think it is, you know. And I understand, you know, I've been doing this for 16 years, so a lot of this has upset me because it's just been at a snail's pace. And it's been really difficult in a lot of cases, not all cases, but to try to keep things going on an even keel. You know, life is not that way. You know, things happen. You know, some months back, things shifted quite a few times. Having to start all over again, trying to get my bearings, and it's just a long, long story. And when that happens, people in regard to here online, they just fall away. You know, they just run off to something else. There's really not a whole lot of accountability and loyalty. It just doesn't exist within this. It can, but it just doesn't exist in this platform. When I was involved with ministry, there was an accountability, and I want to really get back to that type of thing. Not necessarily ministry in the same sense in the way that I did it before, but I want to get back where I'm working with people directly, because there is accountability there through this platform that is the internet, through this cyber portal. It doesn't really allow for that. It only thing that comes through is character, you know. But people don't have to do anything. They won't. You know, they'll just go here and there and there and here. And it seems to be the normal thing. For me, that's just not a normal thing, you know. And I can never adjust to that. So, meaning I have to have the real thing, you know, where there's direct contact with people. And I see this as a glorified tool to be used in order to connect with people, do certain things, and, you know, try to make things happen in where we're, you know, the places and where we live, because that's what really counts, you know. All this other stuff is just assisting us to help connect with one another so that we can do the real, right? So I get upset. I get frustrated like everybody else. You know, I'm a human being under these conditions, and I've been struggling a lot. So if I kind of fly off the handle sometimes, you know, if anybody's seen that, that's the reason why. You know, it just is what it is. And it becomes extremely frustrating. So I understand why people just will get upset, you know, about certain things they may not understand. It's because there's just not enough, there's not enough degrees of connection through this, you know, way of communicating. And a lot of things, not to, you know, go over the same thing that I just did, but a lot of things get misunderstood, you know. Someone may say something and someone will reinterpret what they're saying, you know. They'll say things that you may define as being what they're saying, but in truth, maybe that's not what they're saying at all, you know. And it could be upsetting for some people. And and it's been that way for me, you know. Not going to pull any punches about that. So just letting you know, in case anybody's wondering. My whole goal here for this channel is really about the very thing I just spoke on in regard to people kind of connecting so that they can move what that really matters into their own personal physical community. You know, the cyber community, you can quit. You can walk away from it any time. Where you live, you can't just walk away from it. You know, there's an accountability. There's a character that builds with that in regard to relationships that require one's attention, you know, and that's where things are going to change, because if we don't know how to work with one another, how do we expect anything to get done? Because it requires us working together. It can't be, you know, a few people doing certain things and toting the line, and then everybody else kind of sitting back and watching. It reminds me of when I was in the church, when I was in Christianity. Most of my work was outside of the institutional church. I wasn't a Catholic. I wasn't an evangelical. I wasn't a fundamental. I was a guy seeking truth, and I was walking with an experience. So I went to particular churches, but my main thing was to work with people, and there was an availability for that, to do that. You know, and when you said you were going to do something, your yes was yes and your no was no. The accountability of your words was based on your action according to what you did. In other words, you led or showed forth through example. And you know, online, the experience has been the uncommon man and woman that expresses that. The majority do not do that. You know, and nothing gets done unless everybody has a similar conviction to act, you know. And so we have to think ahead. We have to play the long game. And I only say these things now and continue to say them because, honestly, I don't really have much hope in any of that. I really don't. But I have to speak it. I have to try to keep going in that direction and maintain hope. Me wanting to create a nonprofit organization under a ministry is the reason why I would want to do that. And that's the reason why I plan to do that and have been planning to do that, is because I have to move forward. I have to continue and expect it to happen, to see it, envision. It all begins with us, and sometimes it's difficult because we lose that connection because it becomes very discouraging. We have people that may come into our lives and they are definitely meant to be there, and they show themselves to be approved in regard to their actions. They're leading by example, and it helps lift you up, and it's like, because you've been toting the line for a long time, it's really helpful, and you start to walk in more encouragement, and then something happens and that person disappears. Either they die, they get killed, or just something comes along and just pulls the rug out from that. It's hard here, but we have to grab the straps, of our pants and pull them up tight and walk in our own shoes. We have to lead by example, all of us, so that when we are working together, we can actually get stuff done because nobody's quitting. So, excuse me if I get upset from time to time, but things haven't been easy. And I'm not a big fan of this online experience being the substitute for the real life. And it's become a substitute for the real thing. And it aches me deeply. I don't know what to do with myself when I start thinking about it, because I feel so heavy inside my chest. It's the wrong way. It's the wrong place to go. So, today, I was looking to go ahead and I was going to go over, there's a series that I have put together called DownStepping 101. Okay? And I thought I would go over part 1. It's in several parts, and what I'm going to be doing is putting one part at a time in Patreon and make it available to the paid members. I've been doing a lot of stuff making it available to the public, and it's time to put value on this stuff and value on my time, because I have a limited amount of time here. And so for those who are serious, like what I was just saying, to work together, to actually stand in the gravity of our own shoes and work co-creatively together, there's people that want, if they're going to be part of this, we have to work as a team, and therefore there has to be a value placed on it. And before I can have anybody truly come in and start assisting in the way that they should, because they're going to participate and co-create accordingly. So I'm going to put much more value on myself and everything else, so in order so things can move forward. I'm not going to talk about my financial situation. Most have come to know that it's been a struggle with everything. And I've been doing everything I've been doing for the longest time on my own dime. Okay? And I would have preferred to do it that way. But life, circumstances, and everything, you know how hard it is here. If you've been here for any length of period of time in this world, you know how hard it is, or how hard it can become. You can get everything taken away from you pretty quickly. And just saying. So, I'm going to do part 1 here. I'm just going to kind of briefly go over it, and I'm going to make a series that's available there, as well as there's a lot of other stuff that's available there. I have a shop. I'm going to be putting more stuff in my shop. Okay, I have my book there that you can purchase. I have a course on the high Veka codes, learning how to play and sing the compositions I wrote for that. Okay, so there's a complete course for that for piano. However, along with that course, I have At the time, I was able to, because I had a transcribing tool where I was able to put it into notation, and for certain parts in notation in chord form and that type of thing. Unfortunately, I don't have that tool to use anymore because of what happened to the computer some months back. And I'm using Windows 11, and it's just been a struggle with all this stuff. Just trying to start over again. It's long story short, that's available so it can be transposed over to guitar if you play another instrument such as guitar. Okay, I have stuff there, like I said, those two items really. I also have my book there in audio form. I have my book here on YouTube in audio form if you wanted to listen to it. I am also going to be doing a podcast about my book, and I'm going to break it down from chapter to chapter. And me and Daphne's going to be doing that, and she's going to be she's going to be primarily hosting it, I guess, and she's going to just kind of look to direct it so that I can be asked questions, and people can perhaps we can do it live where people can come in, during that session, and they can ask questions concerning, because that book is full of, it has to do with my personal experiences since a child and throughout my life, and I kind of condensed it. Okay, so there's a lot of information in there, and there's a lot of things there that are extremely beneficial. Long story short, I'm just going to be doing things that really has to do with being able to promote the ministry for what we intend to do, which I've been planning for some time now, and now's the time. Like I said, I'm no spring chicken. Okay, I'm going to be 66 here pretty soon. I've been through hell and high water. Long story short, I don't have that much time here, and I want to make it count for everything. So again, I will not be responding to any comments on YouTube. None. You can contact me. Plenty of information here where you can contact me directly. If you need to speak to me about something, you can contact me directly through the information that's provided here. And if you want to book a session with me, you can do that the same way. Okay? Again, moving to another chapter, and then all this that I'm doing, just have to be serious about it. So all the things that was once before are now going to be taken to another place. So hopefully I didn't confuse any of this. I'm just shooting from the hip here. So again, we're going to go over part 1 of DownStepping 101. Okay, just to give you an idea of what this series is going to be about. So it's in several parts, and this is part 1. All right. So DownStepping 101. So DownStepping of Creation 101, the source of creation and the Unisi. By the time I go through all this, it's going to be really clear an understanding of what source is. Most people think of source as a deity or this figure that's above everything, and that's not what it is. It's like, in contrast, it's like the idea if you have a home that supplies you electricity and you have outlets and you plug into that outlet, well, that's the outlet to the power. Is it a single thing? No, it's not. It's not a single thing. People call it electricity, right? But what is that, right? So we're talking about in regard to consciousness and the relationship of what that is, because the consciousness itself, the idea of what that is an operating system to this construct's design. What we truly are transcends all of this. We are not consciousness. We are not soul. We're none of this, because what we are can't be described, only perceived and experienced through this creation field. And therefore you can give names to to the function within these things, such as soul. Soul is a station of identity. Okay, consciousness being the operating system and how one is able to experience oneself through it, along with the other aspects that makes up the mechanisms of what the construct is. And it's all conscious, period. If you were going to use a word, you would use the word conscious in this state. I mean, in reference to this, because that's the operating system. Consciousness is not what we are, but what we're experiencing ourselves through. And we're going to see all this time I'm finished, okay? And it really is a study course. So this is the reason why I'm going to be making it available within Patreon. And for those that are serious, there's plenty of other courses in Patreon, okay? And there's plenty to choose from what's in there. So I'm going to, those things that I had made available to the public, I'm going to now make it only available to paid members, because what I've found over the years, and I've known this for a long time, if you don't put value on things, if you don't put value on yourself, virtually nobody else will. So it's very important, in order for people to actually engage with things and look and desire to learn from it, there has to be value on it. And at this point, I mean, what I charge a month for Patreon is less than a cup of coffee these days. Okay? It's kind of ridiculous. So it's more than a bargain, that's for sure. And that's not always going to stay that way. It can't stay that way, because not unless there's a lot of people to come in. But there's only like 36 people who are paid members, and there's almost 300 members there, and the rest of them are free members. That's not sustainable for me, okay? I can't expect to do the things that I've been doing here, and this is, it just doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't make any sense to you. It really shouldn't. If you were in my shoes or you were doing the same thing, would it make sense to you? No, it wouldn't. So I can't continue to do all this stuff on my dime the way I have been doing it. So I just want to make that absolutely clear. I know it sounds like I'm preaching here, but that's what this live stream stuff is for. It's for me basically try to make things clear, because I keep running into a lot of misinterpretations of what I'm saying and what I'm talking about, and then having to repeat things over and over again because new people come in. Like I said, it's the internet. It is that way. And so it becomes quite frustrating, actually, but it is what it is. So if I'm going on and on and on, that's why. I really don't have much choice. Well, let me address those who are here. Hi, Sally. How you doing? Let me see here. I'm not really good at reading stuff until I finally focus my attention. Thank you, everybody that's here. Sally, I can't read aloud. I'm sorry. I have a hard time saying, folks. So I recognize Sally because I recognize her picture. So, but let me see. I have somebody that's new, and they say that you're a member. Okay. If I don't quite said read aloud presently by quick. Okay. That's a long name. So, well, thank you. You're a member. That's awesome. That's great. Mary, is that your real name? Okay. All right. Well, nice to meet you, Mary. Hopefully I got that right. Yeah, if Daphne's asking y'all if you could do certain things here, please share, like. The algorithm of YouTube is that if there's not enough people commenting, liking, or everything, my videos get buried. This is the reason, one of the main reason why my stuff hasn't taken off. And occasionally I'll do a video that people seem to like to connect with, and then a lot of people will comment on it, and it'll get, a decent amount of likes, and it'll be shared a bit, and it happens quickly. And so the algorithm will say, oh, okay, let's promote that. And the reason why that design is there is because this YouTube is a business for YouTube. And if nobody's watching my videos, they're not going to promote me. They're not going to promote anybody that it doesn't benefit them. So in order for this thing to move forward, and then, people won't see me, and they won't say, oh, I had no idea you were here, and I've been here for 16 years. Okay. I'm just saying, it's so important to do these really simple things like, comment. You don't have to say much. Just, like I said, I'm not going to respond to comments. I'll like them and everything, and I'll show my appreciation by, doing that type of thing. But I can't spend time answering people's questions, is what I was saying, is really what I meant in regard to on YouTube. I don't have the time for it because in some cases, these questions run deep and they take quite a bit of time. They can take up to an hour to 2 hours of my time to answer some of these questions, because without going into detail for the reason why, well, it's in text. So in order to try to be clear about what I'm saying, sometimes it takes, and that's a lot of time. And when they start adding up like that, I don't have time to do that anymore. I don't. I only have time to do what I'm doing right now, and I have other things that I'm preparing to do that I've been preparing to do for years, and that needs to be a priority. So I'm just saying, I'm not ignoring your comments by not responding to them, but I'm just saying I don't have time to really answer them, so I'm not going to respond to any of them other than just acknowledge that you did comment, and I'll like it, or I'll give it a heart or something like that, just to let you know I appreciate you. But if you really want to contact me or say something to me specifically, again, you just go to Patreon. You can message me there, or you can just use my email, which I have available within the description of every single video. You can get that email through a link to my website, which I'm here pretty soon in the future. I'm going to discontinue that website because it removed a lot of the materials that I had on there, and it's really not much use to me at this point. I'm going to move everything into Patreon, so I will just I'm going to take the time out and just make sure that I have my email here available within the description of the videos here as well. I do believe I have it. If you go to my main page, there's a lot of ways to contact me there, and I'm sure my email should be available there. But I'm going to make sure that stuff is easily accessible, okay? What else was I going to say? I was going to say something. No, I totally spaced it off. I kind of went off on a tangent, and I was going to go somewhere else. Anyhow, all right. So, I'm sure I'll remember if it's important for me to remember. Well, it was at the time. I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, so I'm going to see what Daphne's communicating, so that'll help me get back on track. If you have questions, not in-depth questions, but just like things that could be answered relatively quickly, you can go ahead and email me those questions. Okay, that way I know that you're truly interested in, and it's really important to co-create and be part of as far as what I'm doing here, because so many people come in and they leave, and I can't give time to everybody. I can only give time to people that are serious about connecting and co-creating and being part of what I'm doing. I'm sure you understand exactly what I'm talking about. So I can give time for those that, it's part of what I'm doing. But everybody else, I can't do that. I don't have enough time. Even if I had a team and they knew how to answer these questions, that would still even be difficult to do at a certain point. But, without belaboring this, there's ways to learn this stuff, or learn certain things that you need to want to learn. You can do that by booking a session with me. And before, in the past, my my rate for that has been very, very inexpensive, okay? And I can't afford to do that anymore. If I book the time with you, I have to have a flat rate, because a lot of times I end up going over the time that that is allotted. In other words, I go past the time, because it just seems to be needed to do that. So I rather go with a flat rate. So I'm just letting you know, $300 is the flat rate. I was advised to come up with that number because sometimes I'll go like 5 hours doing what I'm doing, right? So if that's needed, then that's so I have to have a flat rate, and it needs to be paid in advance, okay? Because I've had issue in the past where that wasn't going on. And so I need to have it advanced, and it's a flat rate of that. If that's what you want to do, I'm here and I'm available for that. So my time is valuable, and that's what's required for me. Because without going into any more about that, it's just, if it was an ongoing thing with me where I had sessions every single day, then, I probably can get out of the hole that I'm in here financially. But in this case, so I'm sure it's just like a once in a while type of thing, at least especially at this stage. So everything I'm doing right now, the time that I'm utilizing in order to do it, my health, so many things factor into all this. So my time is just really extremely valuable especially at this stage in my life. So whatever I do, it has to help me first. Okay, it really does. I put a lot of work into this channel. I put a lot of work into everything that I've been doing, and most of it is taken for granted or dismissed. And so for me to truly value myself, I have to put restrictions on things and value my time and value myself, which is a demonstration of my value for others as well. Because the whole reason why I'm doing this is not to make a name. It would never had anything to do about look at me, look at me. I'm in front of a camera only because somebody's had to do it. What I would rather be doing is not what I'm doing. And I just want that to be clear. So it's not like I'm doing this because this is something that I really wanted to do and I wanted to be a spiritual leader. I have no desire to be anybody's leader. Never, ever. Okay, maybe a leader of a rock band, but everything else, no. Okay, so I'm just saying I'm not doing this to be, the guy, all right? No, I've been doing this as a service. That's what I've been doing. I've been taking the things that I most greatly value concerning myself in my personal time and the things that my affections are connected to, and I've been putting that on hold to do this other stuff. And I've been doing it for a long time now. And I can't get back that time. I'm an old fart now. I can't get back that time. So I'm just saying this is not an ego thing for me at all, right? I don't need a name. I don't need any of that stuff. I just would like to see things get done. That's really it. And the only way things get done is for us individually taking the bootstraps and pulling them up and walking in our own stability collectively. Supporting one another, encouraging one another, being available to one another, making our yes be yes and let our no be no about the things that we can do and what we can't do. Being very clear and transparent. And the only way we can do that is to create true relationships, being available and accountable to one another. And it first starts with us. We are the example. We are the leaders of the example. Okay, I think I said enough. I'm sure I said way too much for most people, but that's all right. All right, so downstepping of Creation 101, the source of creation, the unici. Unici meaning point of all union. We'll understand this completely. Time will get through all this, at least through the whole series. I don't know about part 1. So I'm not going to be doing part 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and all that. here on YouTube. I'm just doing this. I'm going to make the rest available week by week or bi-weekly. I'll have part 2. After I'm due part 1, I'll have it part 2 the next week or the week after that. But try to at least get 2 of them going for each month, so it's available on Patreon. And so that being said, let me go ahead and go through this. All right. Fortunately, I have read through this before because I created it. So even though it's far away, I can summarize this decently. All right. So it's important to remember that all structure, when we're talking about structure, we're talking about the design, we're talking about the creation fields, okay? It begins within the unici. This is from which the first creation vibration thought intention comes forward, comes out of, okay? Which is, there's no polarity in regard to any of that. Polarity is polarity is part of the design that is within the design within the light fields. It's where you see it primarily within the light fields, what is called the light fields. Okay, so it's important to remember all structure, design, begins within the unici and can be seen within the tri-unity of the Manu, Ire, and Mane. Right, so unici, again, means point of all union. You can see graphics here, all right? Circles within circles. That is one of the best ways to look at that or to remember this, because everything's from the in out. All right, so the first creation vibration thought intention is what we're talking about here, okay? That tri-unity, configuration or code. Everything is conscious. Consciousness is energy. Energy is conscious, okay? So the Partikai, also because it's the triune aspect of it, known as the Manu, Ire, Mane, we're going to define these things, but the Partikai is what's also referred to as what is Manu. So we have different names going on here. Different names in relationship to function, because different names define it differently. Okay, I'll repeat that. Different names for the same thing are used to define it differently, to give you a more vast understanding of what we're talking about. Okay, so Partikai equals the Manu. The Manu equals womb. Okay, think of it literally as a womb. Okay, from that which is created and is to be given birth. So the Partikai, the Manu, think of it as a womb as well. The Partikam equals Ire, which equals, you can think of it as mother or feminine energy. Okay? The Partike, the Mane, or father, or masculine, or male. Okay, so the expressions of male and female, right, are part of the design. It's not that we're male or female, it's that we're experiencing ourselves as that. We are vicariously experiencing ourselves differently. The whole point behind manifest reality, or these dream worlds that we're in, is to perpetuate creation through the creative imagination. And how do you do that? In order to expand that is the creative imagination. Our creative imagination is to experience self differently within it. It creates different scenarios and circumstances and situations that allows for the creative imagination to expand, to come up with something new, to be able to do things differently. This is a process of continuing. We're going to get into that later on. This is something I touched in on before, okay? But I'm going to be repeating a lot of these things because it has to do in respect to transcendence, which means that you are none of these things. What you are has no words or ways to describe it here within any aspect of these creation fields. Truly who you are is without name. because there's no way to describe it, because it's the antithesis of anything here. So the idea of continuing is relative to the creative imagination here in order to continue to expand so that creation may be perpetuated, hence the expression to continue, because it's literally we choose to continue. It's a consciousness construct. Remember, intention is everything. Okay, hopefully you'll start connecting the dots here. You'll see what I mean. All right, all that there is. So what we're talking about is all that there is. This creation, these creation fields, this infinite state of dream worlds or consciousness fields is all that there is. What does that mean? What we experience is what we have decided to continue to do within experiencing self differently. Therefore, all that there is all that there is in this relationship in regard to what we understand as the creation fields, which is infinite because it's a consciousness construct. There is no limitation to it. Only limitations there are is what we put on ourselves purposely. We do that on purpose. Again, it's about the creative imagination, being in circumstances, challenging ourselves, creating fields of reality, which is not us, but us experiencing ourselves differently through, to be able to perceive and to create in a way that we have never, ever done before. That's the whole purpose. It's to continue, and that allows to continue. So there's stimulation, there is challenge, there's all these things that you can think of that would allow you to persevere. So I want to master that. You get very adamant about it, you know. And the greater the struggle, the greater the reward. Potentially. Okay. It's a different subject. Well, not really a different subject, but it goes a little bit deeper. So all that there is downstepping. It downsteps into the source seed codes. What you see there, some of you may recognize that. That is referred to as an Akasha, okay, which is a source seed code. It is the master code, and we're establishing clarity in regard to that. All that there is downsteps into source seed codes. All right? 2 sets of 12 making up 24 source seed codes. All right. I'm just going to go through this, and then I can look at anybody comments after this, or during, excuse me. I'll have to go back and take a look. I just want to get through this. Okay, so the first individuation in our cosmic order level, all right? So what we have is the source seed code represents the source. Remember this, because everything is living, everything is conscious. Consciousness is the operating system. You can think of consciousness as an operating system as a vehicle from which we move through these constructed dream worlds. Okay, so the source seed represents the source family of Gestalt. What is Gestalt? The better word to use here, because nobody really uses Gestalt anymore, or most people don't, is collective. That's the better word to use here. It makes a bit more sense to most. So, a family of collective consciousness within the levels of individuated identity. So what is that saying? Well, what it's saying is that we pre-exist this, and we are a source unto ourselves. This is something I talked about before, I think a couple times. Most people don't want to hear this because I don't know, for whatever reasons, they just can't connect to it. But to understand that you're transcendent, and what we're describing here is a process from which, within this creation field, from which it emerges out of. And you have to realize when it's referring to the idea of a source family of collective consciousness, It's not exclusive only to the first individuation in the cosmic order level. This exists out of it. The difference is that you can't identify it as being individuated, because that's the wrong word to use. But understand, you are unique unto yourself, and this, you're only a fractal of what you truly are. And that which is the source is this multiplistic thing. There's really no terms to use for it, but you are it. You're a part of it. It is a collective aspect of being. Okay? So let that not be lost. And within manifest reality, the way things are, and because of certain beings that have been within it for so long a period of time, because you don't, from certain stages of, say, like within the primal sound fields, the cosmic manifest template, there's several different names given for that. Okay? You don't have to leave there. You can choose to downstep. It doesn't mean that you need to leave. And a lot of those who are in manifest reality, a great deal have chosen to leave, of course, but it's kind of interesting because it's done within subdivision of energy. So you still reside there, is what I'm saying. But parts of you, for some, they may reach a certain stage within manifest reality and decide not to go any further than that. They don't choose to go any denser. And usually the ones that have been around a long time, not always the case, but have been around out within manifest reality for a long time, are within the dense fields. And it's easy to get lost in these dense fields because there's a whole lot of shenanigans going out in these very dense fields. Okay? Creating the illusion of separation can do a number on your head, and it can do a number on the idea of identity in respect to ego. Ego is essential, so there's no such thing as ego being bad. It can just be out of control. There's a difference, but it's part of the experience. It's required based on the density that you're in. So this is known as being the incarnate identity within these outer worlds. These are the most outer worlds, okay? So, at any rate, let me go back to what I was doing here. So each source seed creates 12 monads. Each monad creates 12 universes. All right, so we are not in the context of what I was saying before, it should be understood that we are not the monad. We're not part of the monad. Apologies. We are not having a problem with my voice. I need some water. But anyhow, we're not part of the monad. We are the monad. So monad is being the oversoul, right? We're talking the station in relationship to the model that I'm referring to is the galactic core. This is where the monad resides. This would be understood as the third harmonic universe. Okay, this is the center of what that is. All right, so that's where the monad resides, also known as the oversoul. Okay, and that is us there. And we're dreaming ourselves here. Okay, I'm trying to make this simple. It's not so simple, but it's important to try to make things simple so you get a broad view of actually what is. All right? Let me give an example in regard to dreaming yourself. This is going on a lot longer than I anticipated. But anyhow, when you're dreaming yourself, what does that mean? You're the monad dreaming yourself. What does that mean? And you're not just dreaming one singular aspect. You're dreaming, in some case singing, the multiplicity aspect of what you are. Okay. Within these creation fields, specifically in these light fields, okay, opposed to the vibration fields. All right, all that's going to be covered later on throughout this stuff. Any rate, so you're dreaming yourself. What does that mean? Well, you know what it means to dream, right? If you ever had a lucid dream where you can change everything, you can orchestrate it as you're going through it, right? Well, consciousness in this respect is just like that. The difference is when you become lucid. Okay, in this case, we're mostly me talking to you and you listening. This is a lucid dream that we're having right now. And you say, well, but it's physical and we feel all these other things. That's part of the the design. It's a field, and there's a reason why it's called a reality field. We become the hologram in order to experience the fullness there of it. Again, to emphasize, we are not these things. We're vicariously experiencing ourselves through it. It is a real experience without question. No one's going to argue that. However, is it true to who and what you really are? No, it's experiencing self vicariously differently through these forms and these identities, because you're not the identity either. So each source seed creates 12 monads, all right? Oversouls. And each monad creates 12 universes, all right? If you want to know more about this stuff, you can book a session with me, all right? But anyhow, monad, meaning the cosmic family, the collective of consciousness, okay? Again, we're repeating pretty much the same thing before, because the monad is from which everything comes out. If you want to refer to, some people have, which they would be correct but not completely correct, as saying the monad is the source. Well, the monad aspect over the oversoul is what's dreaming these outer worlds, and our experience, a different experience. So us as the monad, we're experiencing ourselves differently simultaneously, because time is a construct and it's all about frequency. So we're like the idea of the piano, and I've talked about this before, how I understand how time works, because everything is frequency and it's based on oscillation, vibration oscillation, right? Different speeds, slower oscillation and higher oscillation. Like when you're playing a keyboard and you hit a higher note, it's not really higher, it's just a faster oscillation. We conceive it as being, higher, but in actuality, it's just faster. And so this is the way that a good way to look at in regard to what time is, right? And you can isolate these different frequencies and then repeat them. So you can go to different points within the timeline. You can be within the different points of the timeline, because it's frequency and it's a very specific number, if you will, if you put a number to it, okay? Which means you can repeat it over and over again. You can go back to it, repeat that note or that time frame, that timeline, that moment. You can re-experience it over and over again. You can do that in your own mind. You sit there and meditate and you think about something. How many of you have done this, where you just, we're still talking about dreaming self, okay? If you're sitting there and you start to lucidly imagine certain things, you can repeat that same thing that you imagined over and over again, right? So within a time structure, you can go back to different timelines. You can go to future tense, you can go to so-called past tense. And all what past and future is, the difference between the two is the oscillation. Past you can think of as being the slower oscillation, and you can think of the future as being the higher oscillation. So when you look at the model, as an example, when you look at the model in regard to, say, within Keylontic science, and you see moving from dimension 1 or harmonic universe 1, dimension 1, 2, 3, and you move to the second harmonic universe and so on and so forth, one way that it's described is that you're moving up in time. And there's different ways to explain this, but I found that the keyboard, for me, from the very beginning, when I heard the word octave as it being described as a harmonic universe and a harmonic, so my ears get perked up when I hear harmonic, right? So I'm thinking musical. And then I hear, well, the universe is an octave. And man, I was off to the races. Most of everything that I know through all this stuff has been through intuition. Stuff that I've already known or was able to figure out quickly. I didn't need to be reading through it very much stuff, anything. And if I did that, usually it was later, it would cross my path and I would read it and I go, oh, so I that's affirmation to me that I knew what I was talking about. And of course, after a while, if you walk the walk, and I'm talking about, and I've been doing it for 40 plus years, that you just know certain things within you, and it's not a matter of question. You know the truth of things, at least you know you have an understanding about things, and you can think of it as precognitive or whatever, however you want to phrase that. But I just knew because I've had an understanding through my process, because most of my life has been internalizing and trying to understand what's going on within me. So I have this inclination or ability, you could say, to where if I see something, I can figure it out pretty quickly and when it comes to these matters. And my attraction to Keylontic science was really just the mechanics of it. It was the particle. That was really my main thing. I looked at that and I go, okay, the encryption, which we refer to as the first creation, vibration, thought, intention. All right. If you understand what that is, then you understand everything else. You know, I don't get caught up in, I understand what light codes are for. I understand the geometry and how vibration moves through it. I understand the understructure has to be a particular substance that allows for everything to be held together and coherently and quickly and concisely, and in order to maintain form. So it has to be a crystalline structure. So what everything is underneath is really a crystalline polymer structure, you could say. This is what allows vibration to move through. And the light structure aspect of it is like corridors that allows it to move through in certain ways, purposely according to design. So this is the reason why we have certain things in regard to form functioning in a certain manner. Okay, within these outer worlds specifically, because that's the point of reference here. So if you have a dog or different dogs, you have different consciousness based on the body and the genetic aspect of its breeding. You have a cat, and cats in the way that they behave and everything else like that. It's conscious, all of it's conscious, every single thing. Look around in your room, you look at the walls. The walls is made up of particle. Everything that's the primal substance. Everything is made up of it. What the form is, the way in which the form is, determines how consciousness moves through it. You know, the different degrees of awareness, how it functions within it. Okay? Hence again, going back to the idea of experiencing self differently, this vicarious thing that we experience ourselves differently purposely. And I cover this in my book quite a bit, and the reasons why that is can be very beneficial, and the original intention for that. And it's all about intent again. All right, I digress, but you know, I have a tendency to do that a lot here, so it's all right. Monad, known as the cosmic family, all right, of collective consciousness within which many universes are created. The monad creates within itself a trinity of vibrating light and sound that becomes the morphogenic field for energy matrices. Because it's infinite. We're in a consciousness construct. There's not about one universal structure. It's infinite. And as far as creation goes, they're being made like that constantly. Okay? Complete matrices. So, as we speak. So, let me go here to... Now, these consist of 3 levels. We're talking about the primal sound fields at this point. So, these consist of 3 levels. Primal sound fields is a non-dimensional field. It is referred to, or is, in regard to these creation fields, as being the first individuated state of consciousness. Okay. Again, remember, consciousness is a construct itself. It's the operating system for this particular design. When we're talking about creation and all that there is, we're not talking about one design. We're talking about infinite amount of designs. So there's plenty of designs that have nothing to do with sound and light. Only way to experience that is to be within it. That's not what we're in right now. So just letting you know. This is as vast can be, and as deep as you can take your mind, and just know that it goes a lot further than that. We're very limited here, and we limited ourselves here purposely. Okay, just let you know. It's not like we've been, forced into this or anything like that. Nope, not at all. It's just, it's not so easy to be able to navigate here. You have to recover enough of yourself in order to do so, because you can get stuck in these outer worlds. So the ecchotic is the first field or level, all right, in the primal sound fields, or the cosmic manifest template, as it's also called. This is the first primal sound field, the primal Huva body. Okay, that's what it's referred to. One of the things that it's referred to. Again, we're going to have different names for the same thing because it defines things differently it defines it differently based on function to give you a better understanding. So anytime you come across something and you go, and it's like you don't recognize the name, and then eventually you do see that it connects with something that you're familiar with, realize that the reason why it has a different name is to give you a different aspect of its function for clarity. So that different aspect of function will have a name, so you can be clear about what that actually means. This ecchotic field is known as the Emerald Order. You probably heard that before, right? Or the Blue Flame. You may have heard that before. It's one and the same thing. Okay. This is referred to, this collective, or this collective is a good word, is known as the Grandianas. Okay, Grandianas. Right. So when you think of all these fields, you think of the yanas. These are the yanas. So this is the first field. Okay, which is referred to as the Grandianas. Okay. All right. So this is comprised of 12 consciousness gestalts called Ekkars. You may have heard that name before, Ekkar. If you've heard of the religion, Ekkar. Okay. The prime focus in that religion is about you recovering your past identities. That's the primary purpose behind that particular religion. Okay, but a lot of what you see here within Keylontic science, from my perspective, is borrowed from a lot of other things. Okay, it is much more detailed. Okay, so what came before the chicken or the egg? I don't know. Doesn't really matter. What really, if anything, matters here is an overall perception of what things are. It is a model and it is theoretical, but I find it to be the closest to anything else that's here available within this world. Okay, so I think it's a good place to be able to learn from and then expand from there. All right, so the second primal sound field is called the polaric, right? Polaric, right? What we'll notice here is these names actually are quite relevant in regard to what we're going to see within the primal light fields. Because what happens here is the creating of an inversion which becomes the primal light fields. So the polaric second, this is a second primal sound field, and this is referred to as the Diomini Huva body. Okay, this is known as the gold order or gold flame. The Wachianas is the name given for this. It's Wachianas. This is comprised of 12 consciousness gestalts called the Rishi. Okay, and then we have third, the triadic. This is the third primal sound field, the Tantra Huva body, the Tantra Huva body. Now we're going to get in what Huva means and all this other stuff. No worries. A lot of this stuff is going to be covered later throughout this whole series for anybody who's going to participate in this or join Patreon to be able to go through this if they have interest in this. You're going to learn what all this stuff means, okay? the majority of it you're going to learn so that you understand, and you'll see, time you're done going through it, you'll be able to connect all the dots. That'll be laid out for you very clearly, okay? All right, the triadic is the third primal sound field, the Tanotra, what? Tana, oh, it's, okay, that's taken from a, what is that taken from? That's taken from a Hindi word, I think. Huva body. Anyhow, this is known as the amethyst or the violet flame. The Ramayanas, okay, this is comprised again of 12 consciousness gestalts called the geomatic entity. All right. I'm going to try to speed through this, folks. I spent way too much time going over this. So I just really wanted to get familiar with this. So anyhow, all right, so duality and polarization. Our parallel universe, which is the Partikai. Again, remember this is a triune expression, and if you go back to the source seed code, that which comes out of the Unisci, right? The first creation, vibration, thought, intention, that code that holds that intention, that complete source intention, okay? And we break it down and say, okay, the Manu, the Ere, the Mane, right? And these different names for this unit of consciousness structure, right? Partikai being one of those names, right? So our parallel universe equals Partikai, okay? Because we have Partikai makes a copy of itself, becomes Particum, creates an inversion of itself, that becomes Partikai, or it's called Partikai. We're going to describe what all this means when we actually go into the Partikai. That's a separate part of the study itself. Okay, so our parallel universe equals Partikai, and 15-dimensional particle universe. All right, so our universe equals Particum, 15-dimensional antiparticle universe. I think they got that reversed. Okay, I'm taking this directly from what was written, and I think they got that reversed. But no worries, I'll sort it out later. So our parallel universe, right? And then the universe is known. So when we go into the Partikai, you're going to see really how this works in regard to the holographic construct. Okay? So no worries if this doesn't make any sense to you. No big deal. All of it's going to be covered again in more detail, and it'll be much more clearer. All right, so harmonic universe 5. Harmonic universe 5 is the primal light fields. All right, that's dimensions 15, 14, and 13. There are 3 primary light fields known as the Ki Raishe. Okay, those being the tones, because everything is vibrational, right? Okay, so vibrational is pre-sound. These are inaudible sounds, meaning that you hear it internally, not externally, right? Anyhow, Ki Raishe, it being each tone there, because there's 3 tones making up dimensions 15, 14, and 13. In this case, it's 13, 14, and 15, because Ki is the 13, and Ra is the 14, and She is the 15th. All right, this being the Raja Huva body. Okay, dimension 13 connects to the 12 Rishi consciousness collective known as the Rishik shield. So anytime you hear the word shield being used, it's always in reference to a complete dimensional harmonic structure. Or you can just make it simple and think of it as a dimension. Okay? And each dimension is a consciousness construct, because the whole thing is, but specifically it has to do with you and your ability to have certain awareness within that field. So this is an example. If we go in from where we're at here, within this incarnate identity, we have subconscious, we have mental, we have emotional, then we have mental. There's different ways to refer to this, but each one of those represents a consciousness band or a dimension. So within that harmonic structure holds that perception. So within the three-dimensional structure, once you reach or have all three-dimensional capacity, you're able to experience the whole thing. Because you can go into dimension one, consciousness. It's literally, it's because it's a consciousness band, you literally can go into it and experience it independently. And the same thing for the, second consciousness band or second dimension. But what we're experiencing here primarily is the combination of all three. Okay? That's truly where you experience your complete being. For this reason is why you can move, and why most people refer to going, we go into the fourth dimension. Well, the fourth dimension is part of the second harmonic universe. However, you can experience it differently, meaning separately from the whole thing. When you're in a sixth dimensional state of consciousness, you're experiencing the whole thing. Because at that point, you have complete integration of soul consciousness. All right? A lot of this needs to be defined even more, I know, but I just wanted to I'm giving you a lot of information here because I have a tendency to do that. So if it's not something that you get right away, don't worry. Just try to hold on to the things that you do understand. Also, okay, so levels of mind. Okay, the levels of mind. Again, when you were thinking of levels of mind, again, we're going back to the idea of consciousness bands, which you can interchange with the word dimension. Okay, same thing, primarily. Okay, it is the same thing. It's the same construct, different name, right? So levels of mind, same thing. Dimensions 15, 14, and 13 is known as, see, here we go, giving it different names, to identify it. It's referred to in this case, through this particular model, is referred to as the meta-terrestrial Rishi identity, okay, which is antimatter, not antimatter, not ANTI, which would be the opposite or the inversion of matter, but rather antimatter, which in this case is part of the non-polarity sound fields. Okay, because if you look at the Manu is also is referred to as ANTE, matter. It is the reintegration buffer field. It's non-dimensional. This is from which everything comes out of. Initially, this is it comes out of the unici, that proceeds from the unici, this consciousness unit, and it becomes triune in its expression. Okay, so antimatter is reference to, so think of the Manu. Anytime you see that, ANTE, think of the Manu. Okay, and you can see the correlation and connection, obviously, to the primal sound fields because that's non-duality. It's non-dimensional. Okay, the primal light fields are dimensional. All right, which is the inversion. All right, so the meta-terrestrial Rishi identity, antimatter, waveform, flaming, it's, flaming sphere of light, okay? And another way to look at the idea of the word flame that's used, when we think of flame, what you're really observing is frequency in its spectra. It's especially when you start going into where it's holding a lot of awareness and the perception, it looks like a flame burning, but it's frequency, okay? Frequency spectra is the more simpler way to look at that. All right, so waveform, flaming sphere, so it looks like a sphere. I guess you could refer to that as looking like a sun, you could say, of light. Okay, universal consciousness. All right, so this particular mind or state is referred to as universal consciousness. This is also referred as the founding races. Okay, this is the jumping off point, actually coming into what we understand and start to experience in relationship to manifest reality. What is mostly known as manifest reality. and that beginning from dimension 12, or the fourth harmonic universe. So the founders, or from which the consciousness gestalt, the collective, there's an inversion within the structure, which is known as, that's occurring within the primal sound fields, that now reflect into and become that which is referred to as the primal light fields, which now begins, this is where dimension and duality begins. And from that, which is understood as the fifth harmonic universe in this case, right, the Ki Rashi, it now projects or downsteps itself, because this is about downstepping 101, it downsteps itself into the next field, which is the fourth harmonic universe field, right? So this is all collective, we would refer to as collective consciousness. Time it moves, downsteps into what is referred to as the oversoul. Then from the oversoul, it's spread out into these greater, denser configurations. Okay, this has a tendency to get convoluted. So if you get lost, and if I get lost, apologies, but no worries. Is this the three founding? This is the three founding races. I just said that. Universal family of consciousness. All right, so now when I do this on Patreon, when I put together the video, it's going to be, I'm not going to do any I'm not going to have any commentary taking place. I'm just going to go through it, okay? I'm going to leave the commentary or the other part to like one-on-ones. People want to have a one-on-one with me. I can go into depth about a lot of this, okay? Like what I've been doing. But if there's no background or understanding or foundation for what this is, me doing all this commentary doesn't really mean a whole lot. In some cases, I've made certain things much clearer, but I'm going through this really quick, and so a lot of this stuff that I'm saying can get easily lost, and even the word confusing may occur, but that's not my intention. I'm just looking to go through this, and I'm just trying to be informative as I try to speed through this, okay? All right, I guess Mary's taking off. Thank you, Mary. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it greatly. Sorry for being long-winded, but I'll try to wrap this up. Anyhow, you can come back and listen to it if you wish. Kind of just skim through it. All right. So, Harmonic Universe 4, the Mahara Huva body, dimensions 12, 11, and 10. So we have 12, 10, and 11. And the reason why it's instead of being like 12, 11, and then 10 is because when we go and take a look at originally what is occurring within the primal sound fields and the order in relationship to each of those levels. So you have the Akkadic, you have the Polaric and Triadic. The Polaric is known as the gold order, the Seraphim, okay? This is the reason why it's put in that order to show the connection in regard to that of the primal sound fields. Okay, it's not like I put it out of order by mistake. All right, so there was a lot more to this, and I decided not to go through the PDF or the outline that I've created for this, okay? It goes into a bit more depth just in the outline itself, and I decided not to do that. I thought I would just stay in front of the camera and just use these things that I clipped out of the PDF as a guideline and just go through that. So, within the PDF, it goes through all of the harmonic universe and identity stations and all this other stuff. And so the summary for that here is within this image, and the names are right next to it. So from harmonic universe 1 through 5, we have the Nada Huva body. then we have the Alpha Huva body, then we have the Beta Huva body, and then the Mahara Huva body, which we covered, and the Raja Huva body, which we also covered. And Huva meaning the tritonal harmonic grid. It's all within a triune configuration. The whole structure of everything is a triune configuration. Okay? And that's going to be repeated over and over and over again. And eventually, like most things, it will finally, the lights will come on and you'll start connecting the dots. And they go, oh, okay. And this is the reason why I reference in regard to the encryption of the particle. If you understand that, this is what I mean. If you get that, you see the connection to these other things. And all these other things don't become so overwhelming, because as duality expands out and then goes in its down steps, in the beginning, it's because of there's so many there's so much awareness going on. The structure is so much more, for lack of words, I'll use the word complex. And if you just like looked at a light structure within, such as an example within Harmonic Universe 5 or 4, it's like pretty overwhelming, because you can't relate to it because of the difference between from a two-dimensional image. It can be very, very perplexing to look at. Okay. That's not really important, is what I'm trying to say. Your understanding is based on where you're at here, and your perception and your intuitiveness connecting to that. It's not about that. It's about how you are able to connect with that. How do you configure with the mechanic structure of it? So this whole series, the Downstep series here, is about that, really. It's about seeing how things connect with one another. When I was looking to present and had presented up to a certain point, which is primarily being finished, it needs a couple other things, but there wasn't very much interest, so I kind of just backed away from it. And that being our multidimensional anatomy. There was a course within Patreon that is called that. And that's what's going on with that. I was breaking it down and showing how it functions as a circuit, like a electromagnetic circuit. And this does basically the overview for how I'm going to present this is to cross that one of those things within it that I'm trying to communicate with this is that. Okay, I'm getting very tired right now, so you have to excuse me. At any rate, so that is for you to be able to see how things connect with one another. Because remember, I've been saying this, and it's so important. If you can see it, you can put forth your intention and you can make the connection. If you meditate on it, you develop that connection, you can just see it. You can see it within your multidimensional anatomy. You can see that how everything is repeating itself over and over again. You look at the Kathara grid. All these things are going to be covered within this series. You can see how it's repeating itself over and over again. The complexity is that everything that there is has these multi-layers of this within it. So if you would look at it from a two-dimensional image, it gets really overwhelming pretty quick. Okay? But realize within your intuitive self, which because you're internal, okay, truly, this is the consciousness being the operating system. If you see this and understand the circuit, and the whole idea is to break down the circuit so that it's understood, so that you can visualize it, at least intend it to be there. Through intention, again, is the most important thing. You don't have to necessarily see it, but intending it is extremely powerful. If you want to navigate and move through say, when this vessel passes away, do you know where you're going? Are you planning where you're going? Do you know where you're going? You know? I mean, it's like, I'm not trying to overdo this, but this is a reality in regard to this. Here's an example. If you're going to go to a place that you never been, don't you need to know how to map? I'm not talking about the GPS BS. I'm talking about what do you need to do to learn how to get there? Because let's say you take the GPS and throw out the window. Forget that. You have to learn it yourself to get there. Before, back in the day, we used to use maps. And once you learned how to get there, you had it in your memory. You knew how to get there. This is the same thing. If you're going somewhere, you have to know how to get there. You have to know where it's at, And a lot of what's created here is created internally within us, that it's not part of the structure. It's us creating within it, within our imagination. Okay? But I'm talking about that which is a fixed structure. Being able to go there. Like this world that we're in. This is a fixed structure. We can go to a certain place and then we leave. As long as nothing happened geographically, it should be there still. And if it's not there, depending on what it is, I suppose. I don't want to go any further than this, but you get the idea. You have to prepare in order to know where you're going. And that's the reason really for this series, is to understand, is it a theory? Yeah, but it correlates with a lot of stuff that's been validated. Okay? At least it's a ground floor position to take that I think is valuable, that people should learn. You should learn it. Should be aware, because it gives you deeper insight and deeper understanding and brings back things that in a lot of cases, we've been within these outer worlds for a long time and had been recycled over and over again. We forgot what that stuff was. It's like, we have to be more than just reminded. In some cases, we haven't even navigated through some of this stuff before. We've taken a different route, if you look at it from that way. All right, so yeah, I talked a lot, but what are you going to do? Right? So, go back to my mug here. So everybody can hear me pretty well, right? For some reason, this thing start working again, which is just amazing. But I wish I knew why it started working again. So if something went awry, I could fix it. Yeah, most people don't know what I'm talking about. And how many people are left? I guess it was just me and you, Daphne, primarily. Sally disappeared, right? All right. Yeah, I know this was very long-winded. And a lot of it's me just being frustrated. Honestly. I'm trying to communicate this the best way that I can, quickly, and I said a whole lot, and I'm sure a lot of it got lost in the process. But man, I've been at this for so long. I've been at this for 16 years, and everything's at a snail's pace, and it just feels like I'm stuck. So, can't help myself. So that's the reason why I'm talking so much here. But when it comes to doing this, as far as with Patreon and all that stuff, like I'd mentioned, I'm just going to go through it. I'm just going to use the outline that I created for it and just go through that. And anybody wants to know any more or know further about it, they can contact me directly and you can book a session with me or whatever. But I'm not going to do any more than I need to about anything in regard to any of this stuff. So I'm able to, the whole idea is I want to be able to do what I really need to be doing here at this time in my life, at this latter part of my life. So there's a lot of stuff out there. I know most people are just interested in chasing the drama. And no offense, I don't mean anything offensive by that, really. I understand that why anybody would. It's entertaining. And we like being entertained. It's like, well, it's not about entertainment. It's about being informed. But yeah, let me ask you this question then. What you were informed about last week, do you remember what that was? You have to stick with stuff. jumping around here and there and all this stuff, you don't remember it. You have to study, you have to focus on one thing at a time so that you get it, and then you know that, at least well enough to where you remember it, and then you can cross-reference things. And then you move on to the next thing, you know? There's just too many things online people jump back and forth on. It's just really a form, for the most, it's a form of entertainment. It becomes that, you know? I know, I'm old enough to know. It kind of reminds me of the old story that was told about the dog and the bone. Anybody heard that? This is probably not, most people, unless you're older, you probably haven't heard this story. Heard this story, and there was a book of it made when I was in grade school. Okay, a dog. It's stories about a dog. He finds a bone. He's like happiest dog in the world. He's got a bone. He's prancing around. He's enjoying himself. I got this bone. He's kind of thinking, where am I going to bury this bone so I can, stash it? And then the dog sees a pond, and he runs over to the pond. He's like, check out the pond. He's like, some water. Cool. So he walks. Of course, he doesn't know that it's water until he runs over there and he sees, then he sees his reflection. So he gets caught up in his reflection, but he doesn't know it's his reflection. He thinks it's another dog. And he thinks that other dog has a bone in their mouth. And he's like, I want that bone. So he drops the bone that he has, falls into the water to get the reflection, and he loses what he has. That's the internet for the most part. People run to and fro to get something and lose what they got because they're too quick to move from one thing to another. And they don't have insight and discernment. I'm not saying everybody does that, but the majority does do that. I've been on here for 16 years. I've been doing what I've been doing. I've been listening to people comment, talk, and everything else. This is what goes on. It's just what it is. But I encourage you not to do that. Take the time out, learn stuff. And go, someone like myself or whatever that's looking to provide something that allows you to be able to go through a particular study. And it's my goal to try to make things as simple as possible. And trust me, if anybody knows anything about chelantic science, I'm one of the individuals that's made it really a lot simple than most. Because most people just regurgitate the same things that they've been taught. I understand it, so I break it down and try to make it simple because it doesn't need to be nothing needs to be complicated. I don't like that personally. I want somebody able to look at it, maybe not understand everything, but at least have a overall good view of what it is and go, oh, okay, then they're able to connect the dots, And that's been my goal since I've been actually using this to be able to assist people. But I've been at this here on this channel for 16 years. I've been doing a lot of other things, And what I consider myself gifted to do for what I want to do, that's the next stage for me because I've been putting that on hold, Long story short, I was involved with the music ministry, other parts of the ministry when I was in Christianity. I got sick and bedridden. It took my life away from me. Many years went by. And everything's been on hold. Sort of like waiting for something to happen that's never going to happen, or being like at a bus stop where the bus never runs anymore, but you're waiting for the bus to show up. And I'm not getting any younger. I have to do what I know truly, not just is something that I really want to do, but I know the power that's involved with it when I surrender myself completely to it, because I've experienced that. And it's unlike anything else I've done. The energy, the intention, and everything, it flows through it. When I sanctify myself to it, it flows through it in its power. It has the ability to change, heal, transmute, and everything else. And that has to be really within the physical world, or say out here in the analog world, not through this digital domain, because it doesn't work the same through the digital. It just doesn't. It's more residual. Again, it's sort of like if you go off into the woods and you smell the woods, you smell, you can breathe, you can taste, you can feel, feel the trees. You're there. You are present, and you can feel its presence. That's analog. Digital is going in there to take a picture of it. And that's what it's like here with this. It's restrictive, it's limited, it's a tool, it's representation, but it's not the thing. Okay? So, yeah. Next stage. All right, I'm not really good at reading what you guys are writing. I can't seem to allow myself to do it because I have to. First of all, it's hard for me to be able to see so far away to begin with. And when I start communicating something, I'm just focused, make sure my eyes are direct, straight at the camera, and communicating. If I start going back and forward, I'll lose my direction and intention. And so I have to stop doing one thing and move to another. So I have to go here and look. Okay, so just to let you know, I'm not deliberately avoiding what anybody's saying. It's just the nature of the situation. Right, I appreciate Mary coming on here. So I just want to address those. I know Sally probably had to go. I did start a bit late. I mean, we're within different states of particle spin. No, I do know. Okay, just to answer your question, no, I don't really look at a whole lot, but I glean stuff. A long time ago, I was really sick of reading, so I learned how to speed read. So because I don't like reading. I just like to look at stuff and figure it out real quick. And only reason why I'm in Keylontic science is because of my past experiences. Okay, I came from 27 years of Christianity, so I was a student, and there was things that crossed my path that I gleaned. Okay, and long story short is that when I looked at Keylontic science, I could see where it borrowed things from other things. At least that's the way I perceived it. It had taken things from other things. So it's not like I have a broad education in regard to all these things, but I'm basing everything off of what I personally experienced because I put those things to test. I'm talking about my own personal experiences that had nothing to do with anybody else. Most of those things happened when I was first bedridden. Okay? There was just me, myself, and I. Okay? And so the reason why I kind of leaned towards Keylontic science when it came across my path, because it reflected some of the things that I had personally experienced. So I had interest, and my interest primarily was concerning the mechanics. So I haven't really looked at anything else because through my process, okay, throughout my life, I've come to understand it's really all about you. What you understand is not based on what somebody else says. It's what you know within you. Okay, we may connect to certain things because of what we already know, or at least have a good working inner understanding. Okay, the internal awareness, right? This is how I connect with things. So I haven't looked at anything really else, as you were referring to, asking, because there is a lot of similarities with a lot of other so-called disciplines. I've seen the correlation of that, okay? Such as the example. And I'm nowhere near a fan concerning channeling. I come from a background in regard to dealing with spiritual warfare. So channeling for me is like, no, I don't want nothing in my space. Not in these outer worlds. No, thank you. I'm not looking to merge here. I'm going to repeat that. I'm not looking to merge here because you never know what the hell you're merging with. There's too many tricksters, too many stuff. A lot of people become possessed and are possessed and have no idea that they are. Dangerous. dangerous. In fact, at a certain point, chelantic science said that was a no-no. It said not to do that. But I do see a lot of correlation with some of the teachings within chelantic science, actually quite a bit, in regard to the sayings of Seth. Jane Roberts, okay, that goes back to 1963, I think. So it's been around. It was around longer. That was definitely had to be some influence, I'm sure. Positive. Matter of fact, I'm positive. That was an influence in regard to Anna Hayes, a.k.a. Ashiana Dean, or whatever that person's calling themselves these days. It's not the same person, by the way. Something happened back in 2011 that changed all that. But, yeah. The only reason why, again, to emphasize why I use this particular model, and I usually state a disclaimer with it. I go, this is theoretical. But there's enough where I connect with it, and I use it in a way that I know is beneficial, and that's my intention behind it. I'm not saying this is the absolute truth. No, I think of it as a guideline, to open you up. And I present it in a way so that it's not like a belief structure system. I try to discourage that as much as possible. Okay? It's not the all in all within all. Okay? It's just a theoretical, but it's the closest thing that I could see to use that as a being a complete model in order to create certain presentations and be used to assist, to help, expand one's awareness. It's just a tool to assist, really. And I see it as a beneficial one. That's the reason why I use it. Okay. But again, it's really primarily based off of my own personal experiences that I had before that precedes chelantic science. I'm going to be 66 here. I've been around for a while. Okay. So a lot of this stuff is not new to me, right? Back in the 70s, I lived and went through certain things that was taking place at that time that people are rediscovering now, and it's like new to them. But I was there for it. These transmissions that were taking place through television, through these so-called Galactic Federation of Light and all that other shit, that was happening when I was coming up, back in the 70s when I was growing up. I was there when it was happening. I had an experience when I was 12 years old. You can call it a visitation. You can call it an abduction. You can call it many things. I'm not going to call it anything at this point. But I was there with a lot of this stuff when it happened. So I knew what was going on. I'd seen it personally. So, when you experience things like that personally, or something happens before certain events and people would see it later, the person who went through it knows it better than any other person that's regurgitating it. Because there's a lot of people these days, and I'm just going to go off on this, especially with the internet, they built a career based on stories from other people. Just because they present it in a certain way. They don't come with any authenticity in regard to experience or any wisdom. They're just, armchair philosophers, pretty much. And it is what it is. But does it bother me? Yeah, after being here for 16 years and seeing people being very successful at something that really doesn't, where they're just taking other stuff from other stuff. If I can't introduce myself with what I am doing and take it another step forward, then there's no reason for me doing it. And within this channel that I've been doing, if one looks at the overall view of what's here, you realize I'm not a one-trick pony. In the most case, it's not tooting my horn, but I've been quite authentic. I don't like repeating myself in most cases. And even when I speak on the same subject, I'll say it differently each time. There's nothing scripted, Even when I create, I'm just talking. But even when I create an outline for something, I will improvise. Even then, I'll look at it and like I did right here when I was talking about all this stuff. I am improvising. I start going and I connect to certain things. I can explain this like this. And it's all in the moment. I never do anything other than that way anymore. It's the way I work. So again, hopefully this hasn't got lost. It's about you. It's about your intention. It's not about the discipline. It's about your personal discipline. It's about what you do. It's like, setting an example through demonstration. It's not about word, it's about deed. And that applies to you always, to us, individually, within these outer worlds especially. So again, I know that was probably not a good response, but then again, bonjour. All right. Did I lose something? Something happened here. Is there any meetings? I started to read something and it disappeared. Oh, Carla. Glad to see you, Carla. Didn't notice you until now. Yeah, well, the New Age craze really came out of Jane Roberts and the saying, and the channelings of Seth. That's really where it stems from. And I've actually caught a film, it's a black and white film of Jane Roberts and her husband and the person who was interviewing them, and it shows a clip of her when she's channeling. And it was kind of funny because I always thought Bashar was phony. It's just a person who's very educated. I mean, they keep up on stuff and they're regurgitating things that they learned because they've been doing it for quite a long time. I always thought Bashar to be phony, and it was funny about it. No, I think he is funny. Okay, I'm pretty sure he is. At least what I seen was phony. Okay, but not to lose my point is that when I was watching Jane Roberts, when she went into that channeling mode, it was like Bashar. And I go, okay, well, now we know where Bashar got that stupid shit from. if this sounds offensive to you, we need to be, I'm not saying it is offensive to anybody, but this has to be seen as funny. I've seen Bashar say during the 2020 that we should be wearing masks and stuff, Why? It's phony. So a lot of stuff within the New Age, there was a whole lot of phony baloney. And my point is that a lot of people, what they experience now is a lot of the same phony baloney, and they don't recognize it because they don't have the experience to be able to see the difference between it. They're caught up in all the drama and everything else, and they think, this is what this is, Just because one has high-sounding tones in their voice and clever things that they can say and things that sound, that sounds about right. If you really listen, it's sort of like a politician that has a whole lot of words and know how to cleverly craft those words, but at the end of the day, after listening to what they say, if you go back over it with a fine-tooth comb, you realize they didn't really say anything. That's been the New Age a lot. That's been a lot of this so-called channeling of ET benevolent races. You listen to it, and it's just a bunch of hogwash. It's just like, evangelical, political ETs. They're just saying, it's just like, it's things that sound good, but when you examine it, it's just like, they didn't even say anything though. It's like somebody coming up to you and just schmoozing, right? And just complimenting you on everything. Stranger, right? But it seems like, what's up with this person, What's going on with them, What's their intention behind, what's their motivation for that? You can always tell if it's, well, not always, apparently. But for me, I'll just say, it's always pretty easy to tell whether it's real or not. You've been around long enough, it just becomes second hat. You see it coming from far away, and people just buy into it. I ran across this one channel that had taken something of mine, and they didn't ask permission. And it's like, there's an etiquette to things, you know. I don't mind people using what I have, but ask. Just don't take, you know. And I called them out on it. And they had like 25,000 subscribers more than I did. As you know, I don't even have 10,000 subscribers at this, and it keeps dropping down because people keep, or whatever, I don't know, for whatever reasons, but it's not even 10,000 after 16 years. And they got like 35,000 subscribers, and they're taking my stuff, and I call them out on it I took a look at what was on their channel, and it's all this voice-over, you know, voice to text, mumbo jumbo in regard to ET, saying, say things like this. We speak to you today, beloved, and blah, blah, blah. And it's all coming to you in love and light. And it's all a bunch of horse shit. It's not saying anything. It's just a bunch of that stuff. And here this channel has 35,000 subscribers. And I'm going, people are just gullible, you know? And here I've been doing what I've been doing and giving my life. And actually showing my life and all its warts and all its beauty and everything, and just being open display and giving and working through extreme illness, not knowing whether or not I'm going to live that day, and continuing to do the work. And I'm completely shadow banned because people apparently don't like me. But if they get to know me personally, as some of my friends had said, you just don't know them. And that's the truth. I'm different, and I like that I'm different. You know, at this time in my life, I am embracing myself more than I ever have. I realize how special that is to be an outcast and not fit into everything else everybody does and what's acceptable. But I'll do things, and that I know for sure most people won't do. I am just that, and I don't have a problem talking about it either. You know, it's like, oh, and then isn't that a little bit, not much humility there? Well, I believe in humility if it's authentic, but I do not believe in false humility. Honor that which needs to be honored. Admonish that what needs to be admonished. Build up that what needs to be built up. Serve, support that which needs to be served and supported. You have to see things for what they are, not with what one's perception is. And I'm a multi-layered onion, so to speak. You have to peel back quite a few layers and actually just start to see who I am, because I function on many different levels. So somebody's got to talk about myself because there ain't anybody else. You have to be known for who you are and make it clear. Let your words be clear about who and what you are through your actions. It's important. It's important for you to say what you say and be understood. If you know what you mean, you say what you mean. And when you communicate it, you want to make sure people understand what that is. And what you'll find yourself doing, especially if you're in the public or dealing with the public, you'll find yourself repeating yourself. Well, thematically, you'll repeat yourself over and over again because out of essentiality. You have to do that essentially because people interpret things differently than what you mean. And I've ran into this when I was in ministry. I ran into this quite a bit. People hear something and they shut off. They don't hear anything more. And they're just spinning about that one thing that they misunderstood and took it out of context of what you were talking about. And they're just like gleaming at you, staring at you, just giving you the evil eye throughout the whole, talk. And then you have to go deal with them afterwards because you need to resolve that thing. And that usually it's because of many different things. It could be because the person is suffering themselves and they've been burnt by other people and they have hostility and they hold and they harbor, they carry that pain from whatever it was, and they have nowhere to go with it. If you hold it, if that's not cleared within you, you're going to just carry it, and then it's going to turn into other stuff, and you're going to be defensive, and you're going to start taking things out on other things and other people. That's not a condemnation. It's just the truth. I've known this with myself. Things that I speak about is because I personally went through these things, you know, a lot of it, you know, and it's, you know, if you can become bitter, and sometimes it takes quite a while to get over being bitter. You know, when my life was taken away from me, it changed the chemistry of my body, being so sick and just on the verge of death all the time, back when I was 33 years old. And it took away everything that I had. And it was so hard to get what I had. My whole life was about not fitting in anywhere, and it was trying to discover myself and trying to fake my way through it like a lot of other people. You know, that's welcome to Earth. But what that did to me, it created a lot of chemical change in my body. And it took forever, and I really never really overcame it because the condition really never changed. It was just able to be managed better, and I got better, but I never got healed because it was a genetic issue, a problem, or from an injury earlier in my life. Long story. It goes back when I was 6 months old. But point is that it took a long time to move through bitterness. I didn't want to hold bitterness. It wasn't my nature to do that. But conditions in this world can do things to you. And it's hard to overcome, especially, you know, depending on the individual and their circumstance and situation. It can be harder for some more than others. But the ultimate goal is to try to move through it. And anytime you can make yourself available, especially if you've gone through enough yourself where you can see it in somebody else and it's brought to your attention, it's brought to your attention for a reason. And especially being out here in the public or doing what I've done before, I'm deliberately putting myself out there. But you also have to watch yourself. You have to protect yourself. You can't just give it into every situation that requires help. Sometimes you just can't do it. Sometimes you just don't have it to do it. Sometimes you just really need to focus on yourself more so. And you can pray within you about that person or something, but not have direct contact, because in some cases, like I've just mentioned, you just can't do it. But it's important to at least recognize things. Okay? And it's usually way more than most people see, because most people ignore everything else outside of their own self. And even at the same time, they don't recognize what's going on within them. They just ignore that and substitute it or cover it up through other things. And we're all guilty of that. And it's not really guilt. It's just the condition of being here. It's been extremely hard. And some of us that are older farts, you know, it's been quite difficult. It's not anything to be understood unless you go through it. That's the thing. Always know this. It's important, and I try to remind myself of this. I really do. Try to remind myself, I never know who I'm talking to. You know? Because I'm not really looking to see them. Really, I'm just trying to be nice, and I'm trying to treat them the way that I feel, the way I feel about myself, that it's authentic, but I usually don't see what's going on because I get too overwhelmed, you know? But it's important to remind yourself, it's important to remind myself. I never know who I'm talking to, or never know who I'm engaging in. And I do have to renew my mind every single day. And sometimes it takes a couple days as it has passed by me, like right now, where I look and I go, oh, I forgot to do that. It's important to renew our minds, and being in the moment is essential. You know, it's all process here, and we just use what we have and give what we have and do what we can, and we try to be ourselves truly. I'm not talking about the personality. I'm talking about our true nature, to be able to work through that so that we can be present for ourselves in order to be present for others, you know. But it first starts with us. I spend a lot of time giving myself away to other people, in my energy, in my life, without any return. And that'll make you bitter, too, you know. Got to watch what you do. So we're always at different stages, but we're never think that we've stopped coming to know or understand or learn things. So I'm going on and on here, but at any rate, to answer the question, it's like, no, I haven't, but I can see where there would be a correlation because I see plenty of that in regard to Keylontic science. Yeah. Well, I think I said way too much already. So. Oh, Keylontic folks. I don't know. I don't participate in any of that stuff. I don't know. I couldn't suggest that. I really couldn't. The reason why is because I'm doing it. I'm not going to send somebody else somewhere else, you know. I'm an elder. So, you know, I would recommend if you're interested in that, you can probably go on Facebook or whatever and just throw a search for it. You know, I can't recommend anybody because I'm not connected to any of that. I'm not. I'm not part of any group. I'm not part of any, so-called cyber community or anything like that. I'm a lone ranger with what I've been doing because what I'm doing is different from what they're doing. And I had just got done doing this long speech about all this stuff. No, I have my own thing. And I really want to get away from this more and more to be able to present what I have to offer. Because what I had to offer, I was doing before the internet ever existed, which I preferred because it had to do with real people in real time, with real accountability and all this other stuff. Yeah, so I don't fit into this. I'm an analog person, not a digital person, you know. And these things do push my buttons because I've been on here for 16 years and it's been like pulling teeth with everything, honestly. So only help I have to offer anybody is what I have to give to them. So I can't recommend anybody else. And I know of none of it. You just have to inquire yourself. So I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your interaction and everything. But when I do say certain things, I am that I am, and it takes a while to get used to me. It really does. And I've noticed this ongoing. It's only people that know me for years or people that had invested the time to try to get to know me that actually came to some understanding. I'm a bit complicated, but at the same time, I'm really transparent. You just got to know what you're looking at. So, anyhow. Yeah, it actually reached 10,000 and it went back. It keeps doing that. As soon as it went into the last 10 digits, you know, it keeps going like this. I don't know if YouTube is doing that or people are unsubscribing because it's not something it's something not something that they want or whatever. I'm a mixed bag, man. I'm not interested in faking out my persona. A lot of people that come on here within YouTube, I'm good at reading people. I really am. I don't say anything, but I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it. I understand why they're doing what they're doing, but they're putting on a persona in order to, because they're treating what they're doing as a business. Most of them, seriously. I never treated this thing as a business, which was my mistake. Okay, because initially I just wanted to do music, and I should have stayed there because I could have worked with companies and did reviews and all this other stuff, and I would have been successful with it at this point. At least from my perspective, I would be successful with it. But I decided to change and switch over to this other stuff because this has been part of my life ever since, childhood. And I didn't start music until I was in my mid-20s, And then I became bedridden at 33 and blah, 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 blah. Long story short, I just ended up on this side of things, And so it's easy. I understand the persona and the act that people have. And it's convincing for a lot of people because they think it's really, really authentic. But, you never know how you got to put flesh and blood on everything here. Because if you live with people, they're never like that all the time. That's ridiculous. It's absurd. There's plenty of times I've gone on here and I put on the hat and try to create that, persona in order so that it's not offensive, and I just honestly, that's tiring, and so I don't know what it is. The reason why things have been so slow for all this stuff. Mainly, I can assess it by saying people just don't get me, which is fine. I understand that. I'm not, in some cases, not all that easy. And a lot of conversations I may have with people directly, because I spend a lot of time by myself, and plus I am a platform speaker. I just go. I know how to I know how to control a room, okay? And when I speak to people directly, when I'm turning myself loose, I'm like a fire hose. And it's not easy to take directly. It works great in a crowd, works perfectly in a crowd, but not necessarily one-on-one. So I can't always just shut myself off. That's the thing. It's part of who I am. It's just part of who I am. So that can be offensive to a lot of people, I've had people criticize me openly. Say they would just basically say they didn't understand me, and so they didn't accept the way I was, and so they called it's the Randy Keith Show. I said, yeah, well, it's my channel. Get your own channel. You can call it whatever you want. It's like, but that's not what was going on. It's just, that's who I am, And I had been bedridden. I've been sick and been alone for a very long time. I have a lot of internal dialogue that I have going on throughout the years. I didn't have people to help me, blah, 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 blah. When you do that, even today, I do that. I walk around talking to myself out loud. I'm counseling myself out loud. I do that. And I can kind of actually get away with that these days walking down the street, because people think that you have an earbud in or something and you're talking to the phone. But I try not to pay too much attention to how people think of something or think of somebody or think of myself. I like myself, before I didn't. These days I do, I still struggle with a lot of things like everybody else, but man, am I ever transparent, It's what you see is what you get if you actually know what you're looking at. That's what I'm saying. And most other people are just putting on a persona. They're doing an act. And people buy into it. Oh, you're so this and that. It's like, I will, at a drop of a hat, if something goes in a different direction and I don't like it, I'll make it known. I don't pull any punches. I don't look to hurt anybody. I'll take the shirt off my freaking back. But I'm not looking to fake anybody out, If you become my friend, you're my friend. I would never do anything to hurt my friends or even a stranger, as far as that goes. I will, in most cases, what I've done, I was in ministry for quite a long time. Mostly what I end up doing is end up hurting myself for the sake of somebody else. This has been my track record. I'll sacrifice myself for somebody else. I won't take advantage of people. And anytime anybody implies that I am, I'm being transparent again here. There's nothing hidden. Everything is recorded. There's no mysteries. There's only one mystery. The mystery that there isn't any. If someone implies that I have, that hurts me. I've been living my heart on my sleeve most of my entire life, and most of that has been in private. I feel deeply. And I can expect, and I actually know these days, that people don't look that far to know. There's a few that do, but most don't. Most criticize, most judge, most condemn. It's kind of sad. No, it's not kind of sad. It's horrible how we treat one another. Honestly. And there really isn't any excuses for it. We're way too powerful. The problem that we have when we're here is that we think that we're the body and we don't want to lose our lives. That's the problem. If you're willing to sacrifice your life, you don't have a problem. I'm not saying that you should think that way, but I've done it more than once, that's for sure. And I've gone through enough where I know it doesn't really matter because everything's on a timeline here. And I'm really on borrowed time here for myself. I shouldn't be here, but I am. Which helps me appreciate things even more and love myself even more, or at least the process of doing those things more. So, we're all working out our stuff, right? But again, you never know who you're talking to, right? Fire hose. RK fire hose. Yeah. Yeah. After 16 years, I get a plaque. And I can stick it back on the wall over here, It's like, look, it only took me 16 years. It's a joke. I don't care about any stupid plaque. I just want what I always wanted from the very, very, very beginning starting this channel was people to work together. Work with one another. Grow to love one another. Be accountable to one another. Be authentic. Most important thing, one of the most important things you can do here, if not the most important thing, is being authentic. What does that even mean, being authentic, right? So what is that thing, authentic? What is that thing? Well, in a nutshell, it is the nature of who you are that transcends all identity, coming forth within the identity. That's what authenticity is. That's my definition. Not so easy, huh? Or is it? Depends on how you look at it, I suppose. How you're able to endure, transcend, push forward, endure, overcome. That's what allows for authenticity to come through. Yeah, we never know who we're talking to. And it's a lot easier to love people when you love yourself. So my encouragement would be, learn to truly love yourself, because then it overflows to other things. And it's been a slow process for me with that. I've come and gone on that over the many years, decades. The things that we do with ourselves and stuff. A lot of times we're thinking, or it could be seen as us loving ourselves, but in truth, it's really us being afraid. Even though we may not recognize it. Wanting to preserve what we have. And of course, that's selfish. But also, it's okay too. It's all balance. After a while, it starts to make sense. And you see the things that are valuable, and then you see the things that are not. And you start seeing the things that you used to do, you don't do anymore. And now you're doing something different. Now it becomes more of a narrow path. If you walk observing, exploring, reflecting, if your inner reality, here as an example, what would happen if your inner reality became your outer reality? Like that, just like that. What would it look like? You'd be surprised. There's a lot of things that are occurring within the subharmonic aspect of this consciousness band. That is the first dimension that sits there. That can be felt within the second band, or the emotional center, second dimension, within the makeup of this configuration, and completely ignored within the mental state. Or it keeps pushing it down. You can feel it, but it's like, I don't know what it is. There's something off. And we can go like that for years and years and years and years and years. And it just builds and builds, and it starts to crystallize, literally crystallize. And it can become it's a thought. You can call it a thought form, but it's not. The words that we use here are kind of weird, but anyhow, you can call it a thought form. It's not really what it is, but you can call it a thought form. And that thought form can crystallize and densify. And eventually it can become a life form. And it could be a life form of trauma that only knows trauma. What do I mean by that? Well, if you were to leave the body, as an example, the vessel expires. That part of you, that energy, which is yours, breaks off. And it could be seen as a dark entity looking for negative energy. Well, it's how it was created, so that's all it knows. It's part of you. It's a fracture of your consciousness or soul, whatever you want to call it. It's part of your energy, so it's part of you. For the same reason, like when Sophia created Yaldabaoth, that's her, actually. That's her. It's just a different part of her. Yeah. So, it's not easy here, huh? Not so much. Yeah. We've been trained to do that for a long time, put on this false persona, because there's been a training of acceptance, right? Of behavior. And all it's literally, the word would be training. And it's not us training ourselves, although we take on the task. Because once we accept that a falsity as being a truth, we pass it down from generation to generation. And mostly it remains effective in regards to that indoctrination programming. And we always feel that it's really off, but because it's what's accepted, this is the behavior we do in front of people, and this is, the thing that we're supposed to do in order to. Yeah, so it's nothing easy here, but love is so important. Above all things, I would say love is the most important thing. There is no law against it, It doesn't necessarily fit into this world very well. True, authentic, unconditional love, that's something to embody. If there's a challenge in this world, that's the greatest challenge of all. That's it, the greatest challenge. But that really is it. That's what creates healing. That's what transforms. That sets the example. It's the pinnacle. It really is. And, when I do the studies that I've been doing with Keylontic Science, my focus is really always the bottom line. What's the core of the whole thing? What's the thing that we should really focus on here? Anything that I've ever done, it's always been, what's the bottom line, If you forget all this other stuff, what's the most important thing to take away from this? And within the process of, you're not separate from Source because you are Source. You're just Source dreaming itself, okay? So the comfort that we have in our heart concerning of who we really are is our ability to overcome, all right? And we realize that our way back our way back, so to speak, is always what we've always been. Our way back is what we have always been. And that is the love that we have always been. Love is the doorway. There it is. Isn't that simple? I mean, simple enough to remember, right? Of all the other things, all the just the drama and all the shenanigans and everything that comes out of everything. It's just so much of everything, right? It really boils down to that. That's it. Isn't that nice, though? Isn't that nice to be able to say, oh, I got it. And, it's not so easy necessarily to do, but at least that should make the connection right here. Just, oh, I feel that. Yeah. And then it starts with you loving yourself. Realize, wait a second, I'm the love that I've always been. And don't ever talk shit about yourself. I've done that over the years. I've always like, oh, you stupid asshole. I would do shit like that. I was always disappointed in my ability not to achieve the things that I know that I could do. And the further I got behind, I would, in moments of passion, I would treat myself badly. So it's important from the very beginning of the day to try to have some kind of ritual for yourself where you have time, small part carved out at least, where you don't think of anything except for one thing. You think about the love that you have always been. And how am I going to be able to enjoy that this day? What kind of mantra or what kind of trigger can I create for myself and just repeat it over and over again that allows me to get back to that state, reminding myself of that? First, feeling it, having that communion with that feeling. First thing, whether you're laying in bed and you haven't got up yet, you're just like sitting there and everything's kind of calm, perhaps, hopefully. And you can just, and when you do that, you get in a habit of doing it. And that's what's important, because you know how things are. You forget and end up doing something else. But if you can just spend 5 minutes, maybe not even that long, depending, right? But some time that's definitely carved out, that time, that sanctification, where you can remind yourself, I am the love that I've always been. I'm freaking awesome. And I see myself through everybody else's eyes, and they're awesome. A little mantra that we can give for ourselves that truly connects within our heart to start our day. And then when things happen in the day that gets kind of wacky, wackadoodle, we can do a little thing to remind ourselves to get back, at least put it in front of us to help keep us on track. It's a daily thing. It's a process, right? Everything is a process. Yeah, truly, authentically, it's a process here. And it's intentional too. So, you're not doing any wrong. You're just in a process of staying on the path. So we do what we can. And it's important to do what we can to remind ourselves to do what we can so that we can do the best that we can. And it's not a standard. It's just that connection, right? Just making that connection, and look to maintain that connection. And if you can't maintain the connection in a certain spot, fine. Vent. Get that stuff off of you. Do whatever you want to do. Scream, holler, whatever. Shake it off you, then start over. Don't beat yourself up. All right. As I have mentioned many times before, I'm always talking to myself. So if you hear the sound of my voice and it's something you connect with and you relate to, therefore it becomes now, multi-beneficial. It's not just for me. Yes. It's always helpful to remind ourselves of the most simplest things. The common denominator, the simplest things, stuff that doesn't take thought. It's something we just can connect with as far as feeling. And it's a reminder. And it can be enough. If it's practiced daily, it becomes part of our routine. And, so after a while, it's easy to flick the switch. Or easier to flip the switch. You know what I'm saying? You can turn on. But turn on to the real, rather than the persona, Yep, I definitely need to be reminded of this more and more. Well, love is everything. Not to contradict what you just said there, but it is emotionally. It's everything that is within everything that we do. It's the encompassing aspect. If we are the love that, okay, let's just say this. If we are the love that we have always been, what does that even mean? I understand what you're saying. I get, but I want to take it a step further, if I may. If we are the love that we have always been, what does that mean? Well, this is the way I see it. Everything that is created truly through love. Love and energy. So therefore, all things truly have the capacity to hold that intention. So I understand what you're saying, but it is actually within all, through all, and throughout all. It's what holds everything together. For it's been created within love, true love. The very energy, the very nature of what we really are, if you want to look at it that way. And because of that, it can be seen within all things. But I understand with what you're saying. Yeah, but again, the multidimensional aspect. Divinity of what you are is because you are source, you're source dreaming itself. You're in a state of forgetting self. And that was intentional. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. It's part of the process in regard to perpetuation of creation. Being able to create through the creative imagination in a different way. And these different ways of experiencing self differently creates that opportunity to create differently. But you can find unity consciousness wherever you're at. You don't have to be in the fifth dimension. It's here and now, right where you're at. And it's not about aligning all our other aspects of self. It really isn't. Although you can do that, and that's fine and dandy. But there's a reason why we're here. We have chosen to be here, regardless of the circumstances that created it. We could have spent thousands of lives, so to speak, if you want to look at it that way, being in this for the particular reason for being this particular incarnation, for this moment. So divinity is found wherever you allow divinity to be, which is you, to be expressed. So it's not about anything other than where you're at within your conscious intention. It's not about going outside and becoming more. You're more than enough already. Okay? There's a misnomer with all that. Sorry, but there is. Unity consciousness is not dependent on a state of awareness once you are aware that anytime you feel love, you're there. Let's keep it simple. Okay? Maybe this is way too simple. It can't be that profound. It is. It is. It really is. And that shouldn't even have to be explained. Too much head, not enough knowing. A lot of belief, a lot of systems of belief, a lot of stuff. And it all could be very good. Okay? Well, selectively. But the point is that you're there. Love is the doorway. I've broken this down extensively through my studies. Provided for other people. I've done it through the music that I provided. The problem with being online is that You have to repeat yourself over and over and over and over and over again. If there's a congregation that you're part of or something, you say it once, and then there's people, because they're there, because they're present, because there's an accountability, and there's not a whole lot of people running to and fro. There's an organization and a respect being shown, just telling you the truth. There's a connection, and then it's understood what is being said. But I've gone over this several times. If you go into Patreon and take a look at the course, our multidimensional anatomy that I did, the core of it is the outline that I drew for it, which is called Love Opens the Door. And I look at the architecture, the whole thing, because it's a consciousness construct, and it goes back again to we are the love that we've always been. That is what opens the door, because that's who we are. We go back the way we have came. That's the trail. That's the connection. It really is. And I've seen it. I haven't seen anybody else see it, but I seen it, and I made it very clear and pointed it out and did a whole, one of the aspects of that study for the multidimensional anatomy course is that, where it just focuses on that. That's how you return. When you look at the Taran, you look at the process of ascension, that's what it is. In a nutshell, again, it's not about all this other stuff. It really isn't. You want the common denominator, the thing that sums it all up. That's it. I don't care if it sounds cliche or not. Some of the most profound things are cliche, and that's the reason why usually they're ignored. When I was in ministry in the church, there was people that I was around, certain people, that recognized how important love was. But they're always interested in finding something else, looking for something more. That's fine too. I'm just saying that's the heart. That's the way back. If you are the love that you've always been, that's the way you go back. That's the door. And within Keylontic science, as an example, there's a lot of terms that are used for what that actually is, what that means. Nanada or, the doorway, the diamond doorway, which is the love door. Yeah. I like simple things, man. I've been around for a long time. I've been put to test. I put my experiences to test. Most people that are satisfied would never test their experiences. I have. I've walked away from things that were absolutely tremendously beautiful and just beyond question. I walked away from them and put them to test. Who does that? What kind of idiot does that? Well, somebody that's really not an idiot, somebody that's willing to do something that nobody else will do to make sure that the doorway is the right way. Again, I mentioned before, I sacrificed myself before. It's not unusual. So I carry that. So when I say, if you're the love that you've always been, what does that mean? It means that's the way you go back. And love is the door. It is not through the design, because you got to understand this is a consciousness construct. The whole reason why it's held together is through love anyhow. What you're referring to is other beings that are controlling parts of the system. And if you know who and what you really are, nothing can stand in your way. You just tell it to move. But if you don't know who you are, you can't go anywhere. I am the love that I've always been. I transcend all things. I am not created. I have never been born. I am that which is all there ever was and ever will be. That's not New Age. This is my own revelation. I know this. And we should all know this. And again, we should treat one another the way we really are. And the more we treat one another according to what we really are, the love that we are, the more that will grow. And the more it will have the strength to snowball, for a lack of expression. And it's right where you live. It's right wherever, well, it's wherever you are, and it begins with you. I'm speaking out of experience. I'm not speaking out of philosophy. Loving yourself is recognizing who you really are. And you have to remind yourself of those things where you're here in this world. This is a challenge. This is the challenge. The challenge for being here. To bring forth love in most cases where it can seemingly never be. Yeah, I've written a few songs with that title. I actually had written one that's in Italian. I'm not Italian. I was guided through the Spirit to do that. Very interesting. That's a beautiful song too. But I got like 3 or 4 versions of that song, We Are the Love That We've Always Been. That's the whole, primarily, well, for the Italian version, it has a bit more to it than just that. But initially that came to me when I was over there on the couch there, and the melody came to me, and I went over here and I turned on the recorder here for the video, and I figured out some chords on my guitar, and then I just sang it right there while I was being recorded. As soon as I figured out the chords, I just immediately just pushed record, and what you see, because it's on YouTube, what you see is the first time doing that song that's ever been done. As soon as I got it, there was no second takes. That was the first take. First time I ever sung. First time I sung it out loud, because I heard it inside me. So it's things like that. That's very residual. The online experience is residual, because we're looking at things. We're not really engaging in it. It's a digital domain. It doesn't function the same way as the electromagnetic fields don't function the same way within that domain, within the digital domain, like they do in the analog world. That's why it's so important for me for my next stage where I'm going, because I want to create a congregation, and I want to establish a legacy so that there is an infrastructure so things can continue. Which is, I keep referring to that word, but there's a reason why I do, and I'm not being clear. I'm kind of smiling every time I do, because there's something that I'm not willing to reveal right now until it's established. It has to be permanently established, so I have the copyright for that name. So I'm not saying it out loud. Well, yeah, I'm not going to say anymore. There's certain things you got to keep secret until it's right time for it to be revealed. But anyhow, it's important for boots on the ground and this accountability and this connection, personal. It can spread out, become more chapters of the same type of foundation group, and that's really what my intention is. Be able to mentor individuals that will be able to take it and move it into different parts of the world. And it's all about boots on the ground. It's all about that foundation. We have to only use this internet thing like a tool. It's going to, especially what's coming here, how things are taking place, is very important that community, physical community connection is established. More so now than ever. So, all right, I'm finished, I guess. I recommend first loving oneself, practicing that. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't matter if it gets stuck at 9,998 or 99, whatever. It doesn't matter, because I don't care anymore. I just don't care. I don't need no plaque behind me. It's what's important is that it grows, because again, I've been doing a whole lot of talking, and I've been on here for quite a while now. I think I've been on here for like 3 hours or so, close to. Um, it's about people working with one another. When I first came on here 16 years ago, that was my creed, so to speak. And this whole thing does not work like it does in the real world. And it took a long time for me to realize it's not. It can only be used as a tool. I wish I would have. I mean, I was just. I don't know. It wasn't really. I think I just had a whole lot of hope, for lack of terms, that people would respond in the same way that I was used to within the world. But it was quick for me to understand that this is a different type of platform. People don't have to engage. They can run away. They can hide. They can not be accountable. All these things, because it's a tool. It doesn't really. It can't. You can do those things. But that's based on character. But because of the way it is, it's not set up for people to be accountable. Like in the real world, if you do something, you're accountable, right? When you're around other people, But what's nice about that, or better, as well, is that you're able to resolve things and clarify things and deal with things immediately, within the moment, in a very personal way. Our attention becomes undivided here within this tool of the internet, this cyber portal. Our attention becomes extremely divided. There's so many degrees of separation with all this. So it is what it is, but it's a great tool, but that's all it really is. And I wish I would have just embraced that, even though I knew it, so-called. You only know what you do. Kind of reminds me of when I was playing basketball, and my pastor earlier, when I was 23 years old back in 1983, he said, why didn't you garden that, Because I was supposed to. I should have been. And I go, I know. And it was just a passing phrase, I know. I didn't really know. If I knew, which he made it very clear to me, he walked straight up to me, really calmly, and just looked at me and says, no, if you knew, you would do it. That stuck with me, man. I go, yeah, you're right. Exactly right. Yeah. So, you can do it and fail or make mistakes. That's fine. But to make excuses, and that's what I did. I made an excuse because I didn't do it. I didn't even try. I just let it pass me by. And it's like, if I'm going to be part of the game, I need to play the game. If I'm not, then let's step out and let somebody else come in and play it. So you only know what you do. So what I thought I knew, maybe I entertain the idea. Okay, yeah, I guess I know. But if I wasn't acting on it, in this case, in regard to the internet, I knew that it was a tool, but did I? No, I didn't act like I did because I was expecting more to come out of it. I kept pushing it and trying it, do other things. And, I realized it doesn't work that way. You have to play a different game with it. And I wasn't interested in doing that because it was just, again, go back to the authenticity thing. So I'm just faking things out. It's like, I don't like that. Makes me feel fake. Makes everything else feel fake around me. So, anyway, you can only do so much with this. And that's all I'm going to do from now on. What I can do and what I can't do, I'm not going to. My yes is going to be yes. My no is going to be no. And if I change my mind for whatever reasons, it has to do with what I need to be doing, and I'll make that clear. Unfortunately, I will probably only do that in Patreon, or probably won't have anything to do with YouTube concerning that, because those who are members they'll get the notification. Here in YouTube, very little is going to get the notification. So So there it is. I am done. I've been done for a while now. I'm just blathering, but actually I'm saying a lot. I'm just tired. All right, folks. Whoever's left, I guess it's just who's left now? Well, Trinity, thank you for being here. I really appreciate your comments and what you've shared. Thank you, Daphne, as always. Always spot on, Daphne. And for those who may have showed up and for those that came in and left, you know, the story about the dog and the bone, ongoing story. Let's go find another bone. All right, so, folks, blessings to you. We'll talk to you soon. I'll be doing these live streams as long as this thing works. At this point, it seems to be working, meaning the audio. Before, long story, it wasn't working. But as long as this continues to work, I'll come on. And a lot of it will be like spur of the moment. You know, when the time is right to do it or whatever, I'll do it. Hopefully it'll be more organized. Again, a lot of this is like starting over, you know. And so I always do things differently each time I do it, even if it's the same subject matter. This one just turned out the way that it turned out. Hopefully there was something beneficial from this, even though it was quite long and long-winded. You have to look between the cracks or just take what you can get. So from Randy Keith, Fire Hose Mentor, here in Reality, California, you have a great evening, morning, or wherever you may be, and we'll talk to you sometime soon. All right. Blessings. Bye.